everybody, welcome to My Three Plays Games. I am My Three, and we continue our player interview series with today I'm here with Tan Fighter or Tanay, and hi, I'm so happy you're here.
I'm happy to be here.
That's amazing. So I the for the the 2.5 people watching, you heard me say this before, which is that kind of doesn't matter how good of a GM or a game designer you are. Ultimately, you're really only ever as good as your players. And so the purpose of these discussions really is all an attempt for me to understand what like amazing players want so that I can be the world's best GM, which I think is a very achievable and normal goal.
That's an easy one.
Yeah,
I don't know
that's
why you
like a
call me if you're
really
looking for amazing players.
yeah, like super achievable. Like it's fine.
Huh.
Man, Tanay is legit one of the best players I've ever come across. I had the honor to play with you in a session recently, and it was one of those games that had no business being as emotional as it did.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh
like,
god.
I think the reason that it was in large part to what you did with your character and what you enabled for the rest of us. So I really feel like between that and the fact that you GM your own shit so well, like I think you have really interesting insights on what makes a good player and your own play experience. So I have a couple of questions I want to ask you, but why don't we start by telling our gentle viewer a little bit about yourself?
Like the singular view. Tanay, sometimes known as Stan Fighter. On my socials, you find me on Insta and Twitter by TanFighter117. And for the most part, I just do like, community games and stuff on the different servers we're all on, like either playing or DMing, and mostly DMing. And not a complaint, it's fine. But beyond that, I do a lot of like different voices and like voice acting kind of stuff. And if anyone does need any assistance with that, feel free to hit me up on either of my socials. And beyond that, yeah, just a lot of writing stuff, working on my own world, all of that, making custom homebrews.
Nice.
That's mostly it.
I'll be putting all of Tan's links in the description for people to check out. So I want to start with the first question that I always ask. What is your favorite setting or your favorite world?
That does end up being the one that I am like writing and have written. But like in general, thematically, setting wise, I'm someone who just likes either high fantasy or dark fantasy. And usually when it gets closer to that, eldritch horror kind of a spectrum, I get like into that kind of a theme in general.
Nice. So what is your homebrew sorry, my cat's like losing her shit in the
It's
background. And despite what she thinks, I think it's a very cool setting. So I would love to know what your homebrew is
yeah.
like.
Well, my homebrew world is kind of a mix of the high and dark fantasy, where like there are a lot of moments of like just big kingdoms, sprawling masses, all kinds of big adventures. But the more you like dig into the world, it starts getting grimmer and darker, and you start realizing like since literally like the beginning of everything, people have been betraying each other and causing all of these small things for their own personal gains, which over thousands of years have led to catastrophic, like abyssal creatures slowly crouching their way. And the entire world, like there's different kingdoms everywhere, and every kingdom has its own brand of bullshit happening, and no one knows about
That's
it.
awesome.
And everything's on a timer. So when you're playing, like different clocks are running out at different places, and everything's just going
That's
horribly
cool
wrong.
as hell, man. That's cool as hell.
Oh,
Do you have
yeah.
like is it a narrative clock system or is it like a mechanical like blades like an
Uh,
actual mechanical clock
I
system?
mean, both. Like narratively, there is a clock, but like I also have like dates on the calendar of the world where I'm like, on this
Oh,
date, this
that's
attack will
sweet.
happen. If you guys
That's
have dealt with
awesome.
certain things, then those won't happen.
That's really cool. That's super cool. That really
yeah,
like puts in stakes, I think, for your
yeah,
players. That's that very, very cool. So is that something that's important to you as a player? Is that having a sense
Definitely.
of stakes?
Mm-hmm. Like, because I feel like, at least for the characters I make, they end up being very, you know, serious or intense in different ways, as you've learned.
I love Raju. Like, let's not. I can't.
But yeah, like, so, and usually, like, the easy way to do that is like, using like death and stuff. But I feel what's even more important is just giving traumatic encounters to them, which then in the world come into stakes, like,
Sure.
because then they have to deal with that trauma and all of that stuff, and then those stakes are what build your narrative as a character, and your player arc
That's
proceeds in
incredible.
a very, like,
That's a really good way to put it. I think I'm in a game right now, and
hmm
I'm so into the characterization of the PC that I'm playing, and I've been
yeah,
trying to figure out like why this is hitting me so much stronger than
yeah,
it normally does, and I think that's what it is. I think it's that
yeah,
there's like personal trauma that is translating to in-game stakes, like it,
exactly.
like for the character. I mean, I have my own
Yeah, yeah,
personal
yeah.
drama, but we don't have to
That's,
game, we don't
yeah,
have to
like,
gamify that. but
uh,
yeah, no, that's a different episode.
that's a different episode.
Therapy with 10 of my 3. Like, but
uh,
no, that's cool as hell, man. Like
yeah, yeah.
that's really insightful. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm,
The next question I have is,
mm-hmm.
and I think I know the answer to this, but I'm gonna ask anyway, which is, what
Uh,
is your favorite system?
the answer is what you thought it is. It is D&D, because that's my most
I
played
knew it.
system.
I listen, man. D is my bread and butter system too, so I get it.
Yeah. But again, that's again mostly like DMing stuff. Now a lot of player stuff. I'm in a couple of D&D campaigns as a player now, and also recently PBTA. I've been enjoying
Nice,
quite a bit, like
nice.
masks and everything. Like,
I
it's been fun.
love DMing D&D, but I find that as a player, I actually prefer
hmm
other systems. Like, it's kind of
I get it. Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, yeah. For me, like, as a player, if I'm playing D&D, it truly depends on the DM. Like, I will always have like nitpicky problems in many cases, unless I'm like really comfortable with the person or their DMing style.
Sure,
Then
sure.
like it really like fits in, and then I'm like, yeah, okay, fine, I can be a player. Like, they do things in either a similar way to how I do things, or they just do things which like grab my narrative, like,
Sure.
maybe I just love making a player character in their world at that point.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that kind of
What is
stuff.
it? What is it about PBTA, or about D&D that really resonates with you as a player? Like, what does it let you do that works so well for you?
Well, for D&D, it's basically like, the system's robust enough that you can homebrew it quite effectively. You can add all kinds of custom flavor to that stuff while it mechanically still makes a lot of sense. And that gives a lot of like free way to make like, custom subclasses and like have your own unique character arcs play out. And I'm someone who plays a lot of warlocks, for instance.
Right,
And
right.
running different patrons and stuff like that adds so much to the world and the narrative just by you existing as a player, that I
That's
really like just love
awesome.
that concept.
That's really cool. So
Yeah.
you really like it, not to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like um having the ability to sort of impact the world through your player
Oh yeah.
character is an
Yes.
important piece. Cool.
I
Very cool.
definitely love like leaving a mark in some way, shape, or form. You're coming back to a village you saved and they like remember you and they're like thriving now. Or someone you
That's
screwed over and it's like
awesome.
a hellhole, like consequences basically, positive or
Sure.
negative.
Sure, sure. And do you find you got that with PPTA as well?
Yeah, so with PBTA, like it's a more freeing experience in the sense that like you aren't as bound to like, the system in that way. Like with masks and all that I'm playing, you can just describe your powers and what you want to do with them, and the system and a good enough DM then supports that. And I have been having quite a like good time in my like few sessions I've played so far in it. But it's just like more narrative driven and more freeing. So like it allows for a very different kind of gameplay then.
Sure, sure,
Yeah.
sure. That's awesome. That's very, very cool.
Yeah.
My next question I have sounds a little bit contentious, but I promise you it isn't. Which is, I'd love to know if you have like a least favorite system or something that just didn't work for you. And to kind of caveat this
Mm-hmm.
question, as I said, I know how it sounds, but the purpose really is not to be like petty and shit talk things.
Yeah,
It's to
yeah.
be like, hey, listen, like as a player, you like being able to like fuck with mechanics of your systems, and you like having players that or characters that impact the world. So those are your desires as a player and as someone
Mm-hmm.
who's running a character. Within that
Yeah.
framework, what just doesn't really work for you?
Honestly, in that same vein of things, the answer is the same. It's D&D.
Yeah, I get it, dude.
Where if you're going purely on rules as written and
Yeah.
you're like being a stickler for exactly how things are written and how they're supposed to be done, while yes, a certain level of them need to be followed for a semblance of, control and order, but if you go purely on that, that limits so much what you can do creatively and like in terms of what you can even write at that point, right? You'd be like, oh, I can't have this as a patron because the book says these can be my patrons, or like, gods are supposed to be like this, and oh, a paladin has to be this good guy who's praying and stuff. Like there's a lot of like confines that kind of start showing up, and then I don't know, like if you're a player in that, it can feel very, just
Restrictive, yeah.
like restrictive and suffocating even at times.
Yeah. So the rules can either be like a blessing or a curse.
That's why I said like D&D, I'm a player only if it depends on the DM,
I
like
get it. I
yeah,
fully get it.
that's why it can be my favorite or my least favorite thing.
Yeah, no, I'm fully on board.
It's great.
Have you ever played 13th Age?
I have been told I need to play it because I love it,
I
apparently.
think you will love it. Like, I really think
You're the
that you will
third person
enjoy.
to say
Dude, you
this.
will love it. Like, I'm the third for 3 times a charm. Third time's a charm. So
I've
like,
already said yes, but they keep telling me I need to run it in person. Because like
no, that's no. I'm sorry, but whoever said that is wrong. No, I've only ever played 13th Age like exclusively online. It's
mm-hmm.
fucking fine, man. Like
All right.
there's really nothing about it that requires a physical translation. There's
Because
nothing.
from my understanding of the system, it's basically you will die at the end, right? Or something.
I mean, it depends on your jam, right? But like game wise, it's I think closer to older editions of D&D in terms
Okay.
of how the mechanics work. But the
Mm-hmm.
thing that I actually am so like, yo, Tam would love this, is there's this mechanic called one unique thing. And
Okay.
one unique thing is every single character has one unique thing. And it's basically just like a thing that exists only. And I actually implemented in my other games, not just
Mm-hmm.
like 30th Age, but I was introduced to it in 30th Age. But it's basically like you could just decide a thing about your character, and now all of a sudden it's canon in the world. So for someone else at my table, like their one unique thing is, oh, I am the long lost son of one of the scions, like one of,
Yeah.
and you know what I mean. So like that, like is a thing that exists now. For me,
Mm-hmm.
my one unique thing is I am playing a dwarf character, and I'm like, oh, she sometimes wakes up with like the sound of like giggling pixies like braiding flowers into her beard.
Oh god,
So
that's terrifying.
well, like, here's the thing. So my one unique thing has created fairies, and for some reason
Oh,
they have a playful relationship with my character. I have no idea why. I just like I told my GM like this is the thing that happens to my character, and now they can like fuck with story around it. I
that's fucking nuts.
it's and every single character has something like that, and as the GM you can use as much or as little of it as you want. But for a player like you who gets so much out of impact in the world,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you would really enjoy that mechanic as a player, and I think your GM could do a lot with it. So I'm
For the record, if I was your GM in this, I would have 100% used this to traumatize you. They're doing this for a very malicious reason every day.
amazing. Amazing. I love that.
Oh.
I love in-character trauma. I love it. Like you just I want them to be just broken shells of PCs at the end of it.
Literally last week we didn't have a session. My players were like, "Oh, thank God, I was having a tough week."
I need to breathe. Oh my God, that's amazing. Okay, so 13th age, I'm gonna try and get a
I
game
need to
going
check it
for
out.
us because like I
Please
think you'll
do.
really enjoy it.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I'll turn organized 38 age game for us. Anyway,
Yes.
so now like we can understand that like the whole purpose of these, like I said, it's about being a better GM. Really, it's just about me hanging out with cool people and talking about games. Like it's very much just like a vanity project. Like I'm so like
That's
it's
all it
great.
needs to be.
I love it so much. It's great. Okay, cool. So the next question I have is tell me about we just talked about the mechanic from 13th age, but like are there any specific mechanics that really stand out to you from any game? Like any one?
There's
together?
quite a few actually, like recently
Nice.
especially. Like for example, like we played that game and I picked a popcorn initiative from that. And that monster I was telling you about, my friend like showed me, I'm probably gonna use initiative with that monster because it's gonna work perfectly in terms of thematics.
Amazing. You know, I
And
had Kaz on here. Like I was talking to Kaz
Yeah,
a
yeah.
couple days ago, and he was saying the same thing. He was like, "Popcorn initiative, man. I'm into it."
yeah, like it's so good for narrative.
It's so
Like
great.
you get to have like the player will have some agency in determining how combat goes to a certain degree, and at the same time they get to be strategic about it. They get to plan out like combination attacks, and if they're not careful, the enemy can get 2 turns
That's
in a row. There's so
exactly
much.
what I said. That's exactly what I was saying. Like that. Fucking cool, man. Like it's so
So good.
cinematic, but also really tactical at the same time.
Another one that I really like is like just team attacks in general. Like just everyone combining all
Nice.
their like one unique things and like using them together in some way, shape, or form.
Fucking cool. That's cool.
Another one, because again I deal with like slightly more brutal like settings. Usually there's a lot of player death and stuff like that, and I feel even as a player I feel this, that like just getting revived in like a D&D game for instance feels cheap to me. Like it feels like, oh, I'm gonna burn a spell slot, you're back. Like, and I end up using that Matt Mercer thing where like you have a DC, you have to like use your narrative bonds and everything that you built over time to like in character try to bring this person from beyond the veil.
I love
like
that.
I use that in every game I play or run, like wherever it's possible. Basically I try to like use that. And in the same vein of things, negative HP, it's hilarious to me.
What is negative HP?
So if you're at 5 hit points and I do 10 damage to you, you're at -5 and you're dying and bleeding out. So for someone to heal you back up, they have to heal you past the negative. So if they heal you at 6, you come back at 1.
That's brutal.
But see, usually it's like you're at -70 and the cure wounds doesn't help anymore. So figure it out.
Holy shit,
So
that's
all my
insane.
players keep further dying.
That's crazy.
Oh.
I love that. I hate
So,
it
like-
as a player, but I love it.
I love it as both, honestly.
That's awesome. Yeah, have
'Cause
you
it makes
had
you
a
be
lot
so
of GMs do negative HP for you?
No, but I will now.
Yeah, no, you
Again,
probably
I'm
will.
only started being a player recently, but I will like do it. Make
That's
me be
awesome.
strategic.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I think that's the crux of it. It's not just like negative HP for the sake of negative HP. It's make me be strategic. Like make me
stakes.
approach my character a certain way.
Yeah.
Which is very cool. That's super insightful. I hadn't really thought about it that way. That's awesome. Okay, this is great. You're just the exact level of amazing insights that I thought you would. Which is great.
If Maisie's games start getting harder, you know who to blame.
Oh man, I've been like fucking with combat in DD,
Yeah.
and like I've been trying to get better and run more dynamic and more thrilling combat, because I genuinely feel like combat is probably one of the weakest parts of 5e.
100%.
And
100%.
yeah, so I'm trying to make it more interesting at my
Yeah.
home games, but like I may have gone a little hard the last time because we were
Oh, I'm excited to
collectively
hear
about
this.
40 hit points away from a TPK, 30 of which were the rogue with evasion. And so I was like, I may have gone a little overboard.
Oh god.
So I need
That
to
sounds like every session, so
Oh, amazing. I that was the closest I've ever come to a TPK. I was like, holy shit, what if like this
oh
was
my
just some
god, that's
random
amazing.
encounter? Like they weren't supposed to die.
That's the beauty. It's not supposed to happen. That's
It
a
was so
player's
great.
job, I
It was
feel,
so
to like
much fun. It
always
was
ruin the TM's like outline.
yeah, it was great. I oh my god, it was so much fun. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, my people here talk about you, not about me. So let's move on to the next question, which is
We were here to talk to each other.
no. The next question I have is there a particular kind of character type you like to play? Like who do you
Yes,
like to
there
play?
is.
Oh, tell me
It's
about
always
it.
unintentional. It keeps happening. I don't know why. I'm just writing and it happens. And that's why they tend to end up being warlocks, even if I'm not planning a warlock.
Amazing.
And secondly, they're always something about the character that gimps them in some way. That's adding this layer of uncertainty and chaos, not just to myself, to everyone around me. And on top of that, once I've done that, once I've given myself put like those fucked up things on my character's head, then I try to optimize him the best I can to deal with that problem.
Amazing.
And like even my character in my masks game, like it's PBTA, you can do whatever you want. I made a doomed, and his entire thing is he will die is his thing, and he's trying to like survive against that. And his limitations are he can't talk about it. If he talks about it, he dies quicker. And all of his like abilities and all are like linked with that. So it's really fun in that way. And on the flip side, in my D&D, like where I'm a player, I'm a custom subclass where every level I have a quota to meet of damage I need to do, which is I'm offering blood. And if I cannot do that much damage, when I level up, I get lesser max HP every time.
That's crazy.
So
That's
basically,
awesome.
if I don't act a certain way, I won't hurt enough people. And if I don't hurt enough people, I will slowly start giving my own life force away and start dying.
Sure. Oh,
So,
that's
yeah.
awesome. So
all of these
you
characters
like
that
to
make deals and shit.
Yeah. So you're all about like mechanically, like I love this. You're forced to kind of mechanic. I'm misspeaking, but basically you have to approach your character in a very mechanically strategic way.
Yes, but it's all driven by narrative. Because
Amazing.
if it's pure mechanical, I get bored very quickly. I need roleplay and like narrative. And yeah, that's like even with like Rajiv, like that's why I gave him that. Like all of his abilities and all that came from the fact that he was traumatized, he couldn't help people, and now he's finding a way to help people.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah, like so
That's
there's always
awesome.
narrative trauma following them. There's always some level of problem as people keep calling me out and saying stop making edgelords, but it keeps happening.
Hey, keep making edgelords. I love it.
Tried to make a wholesome character. Like Rajiv was my wholesome character.
Oh my god, that's just hilarious. That's hilarious. So for anyone who doesn't know, I'm gonna link the play to the actual play in the description for people to check it. It's a 4-session arc. But Rajiv was well, I'll let you describe because I will I'm sure misspeak, but from my perspective,
yeah, exactly.
From my perspective, Rajiv was this older, like broken human being that was just trying to get some redemption in the last days of his life. And I wasn't that old, but like you know what I mean? Like he's just he considers himself at the end of like his road, like he's approaching that
Like
stage of
he's
his life.
done.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's approaching an area where he's pretty much done, and now he has a chance to have the redemption he's been looking for all of his life. And that's who Chan is referring to as a wholesome character.
For the record, just for a preface of the other character I was mentioning, just so you understand the scale, the one that is a player character right now, who's like this blood pack dude, he was a noble's kid who was going out partying with the people of his like estate or whatever, and he was having a great time. Turns out the girl he fell in love with was actually part of this opposing noble house that brought his house to its knees and
That's very
called him
Romeo
and
and
his family
Juliet.
out.
Love it.
His family got called out for worshipping a taboo god, basically, and he was on the run for many charges against his father, who was killed during this whole thing. His dad got killed, half his family got killed. He's on the run with his sister, brother, and mom. They get surrounded on the brink of death. He's offered a deal from the void to complete a circle of blood in return for power, in which he goes nuts. He agrees to it. He saves his family. His family disowns his ass for being this monstrosity. And now he's on the run, going around finding ways to finish this circle. He doesn't even know what it is. He's just getting visions of eldritch creatures. And while he's also looking for his brother who went out pirating somewhere, and he needs to find him and tell him the news of his dead dad and his family besmirched. So
Holy
he's charged with
shit,
murder,
dude.
eldritch fiend, and yeah, it's
I just
great.
want
I
to
love
hug
it.
your characters. Like, I just want to hug them and be like, it'll be okay.
Oh god. One of my
It's
favorite
okay.
NPCs is very similar to that I've written. That'll take a bit to like explain, so I'll like save that for a different like
Oh
episode.
my
But
god, but I definitely want to come back to that though, because that's
oh yeah,
just
yeah. If you have time
delightful.
at the end, I'll tell you about it for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Like
please,
yeah, yeah,
please.
He is tragedy incarnate.
I love that. I think that should be your player brand. Is tragedy incarnate
Tragedy.
is your player
Yes,
brand, your PC
yes.
brand.
Oh
I
my
love it.
god.
That actually goes into the next question I was going to ask, which is how would you classify your playstyle? So we have a sense of like what kind of characterization you are drawn to, but like
Yeah.
how do you actually sort of play that at the table?
So, well, I'll like divide that between the two, like, aspects, which is like, the mechanical and the narrative aspect at least. And mechanically, I do still make them to a degree optimal enough to like be functional, like even with the handicaps and everything. And if I am playing something, I am usually someone who likes a little bit of magic in there. I like to have utility options that give me a lot of like choice to do more than just, I swing my sword. Like I like doing things beyond that, and I like creative solutions. So, use telekinesis to make a cave-in happen, that kind of stuff.
Nice.
And
Nice.
when it's on the narrative side of things, I usually do tend to be someone who likes playing charisma based characters, or like even in different systems, even like just characters who do a lot of talking, like characters who either end up being the face of the party or the mask of the party, like doing the shady shit. But regardless, I like being someone who does a lot of like, NPC or even like player to player interaction and driving either my own personal arc or whatever arc we're doing.
Do you include other characters in, because like you obviously have like a really robust sort of characterization of your character and like their own arcs. Do you include other people at the table in them? Like, because I saw that a lot with
Yeah.
Rajiv. Like I saw like
Mhm.
one of the things that I really was so drawn to was that Rajiv had this redemption arc that he was on, and really, but like what I really was drawn to was
Mhm.
how you played him in a way to that he wasn't solving this on his own, he was solving this with his party. So
Yeah.
can you speak to that, the approach a little?
like in Rajiv's case, for instance, like we were given, like, like during our session 0 and all, we were given this opportunity to create those bonds and like create those connections. And I already had the idea for this kind of a protector character in my head around that point. So when I heard that everyone is going to be like these, young kids, basically, I figured that was a very like good way to like give him this redemption arc while also tying him to the party in a way that, because he needs a reason to protect people. He needs a reason to start caring again. And that reason can start by him just being attached and like, finding certain people endearing to him. And that was the rest of the crew in this case. And that kind of like worked out in Rajiv's case. But like there are certain characters where I'm like, no, like he is clearly on the run. Like he wouldn't have like immediate bonds with people. And in those cases, what I tend to do is over time, like either like even like with these edgelord characters, like they over time would either gain respect or maybe they would like start seeing light again after like a lot of dark in their
Right.
life, and they start kind of connecting that light to certain people,
Yeah.
and from that they start becoming either protective over them or they start becoming defensive about them.
Right. And I actually feel like that's kind of the most like we're laughing and being silly about the tragedy, the trauma
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
stuff. But I feel like those kinds of characters, like it's really easy to, again, despite what my cat thinks. I think it's it's really easy to conflate that kind of characterization with like a sort
Mhm,
of lone wolfiness and be like, oh, I'm
mhm,
just gonna like deal with this by myself because my character wouldn't like engage with
mhm.
anybody else. But I think the point is that you can play characters that have this kind of
Oh yeah.
immense tragedy and this deep hurt, and you can still be really intentional about including the other people at the table in that game, in that story, in really meaningful ways. Like you don't have to be a lone wolf just
Yeah, yeah,
because
for
you're
sure.
sad.
Like for me, like that's how I like look at it also. Like a character who has a hard shell, a character who has trauma or has suffered any sorrow or hurt, they like when they show vulnerability finally, or when they show any warmth, there is more weight behind it. There is more meaning
Yeah.
to it.
And you
And
have to actually do that, dude. Like that's the thing. Like you can't
yeah.
like be forever edgelord.
Oh yeah, like
Yeah. You
like exactly
start
like that's what I love
edgelord.
doing.
You start
That's
edgelord.
that's what happens, because then he starts caring, and then you see like this, like you would basically see this difference, because like you can obviously have just like lone wolves, and sure, like that's its own way to like play it, but like with the way usually I tend to take my arcs whenever I'm able to is that giving these hurt people a chance of warmth, seeing how someone in that place, like, because different kinds of trauma exist, like different kinds of like hurt exists, and how someone with that pain would then again learn to trust people, looking at how they would again learn to be close to someone and eventually again start being wholesome themselves, like
That's
all of that
awesome.
connecting together. That's what I love. Like even that like NPC I haven't like told you about, like he's fucking Omega Edgelord. He is lone wolf as they come. But like in my home game with the party, he's literally like, you fucking touch any of these people, I will shoot you in the head. He's
Yeah.
at that point. Like
I
it gets
love
there.
that. And honestly, it doesn't need to be more complicated than that. It does not need to be more
Like,
than I'm
yeah.
just fond of these people. And like you don't
Yeah,
need
exactly.
anything more complicated than that.
Because if he's fond of these people and you know what he's been through and has still ended up being fond of these people, that speaks volumes in itself. Like,
Completely agree.
yeah.
Completely agree. Awesome. That's great. I'm so glad we talked about that. I mean, because I know we've been like laughing and joking about like broken characters
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff, but
yeah.
like I feel like there is some actual like substance to it that I think you're able to bring to like, because I do feel like there's an appeal to
Mm-hmm.
playing a character that has the ability to have that kind of growth, and for that to have the biggest delta starting from a place of hurt is something that is a really like normal
Yeah.
ass thing to do as a player that wants to play something more narrative. but like it's really important to make sure that you're involving and including other people in your play, and it's not just like
Definitely.
the Mythical story or the Tan story, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah,
so
the spotlight syndrome's the worst thing.
yeah.
Period. I mean,
I felt
yeah,
like
just
you were
like
gonna
talking
say
about
something
it.
that cut you off. I'm so
No,
sorry.
that I was just like, no, like when you said I was just like, oh, I just fucking like geeking out about shit. I like that song.
No, I love it. That's what I'm telling you, man. Vanity project. Like that's all this is. Anyway,
Yeah.
the next question I have for you: what is one or a few memorable things that a GM has done, or that your players have said you have done as a GM?
I will start with one which was in my head earlier. Because the second you had even like considered that question, I was like, I know exactly what. Because I once had a player literally like one of my home game players hopped onto one of the games I was running on the server, and we were taking a break. He just started shit talking a session like we had, and he was like, I felt horrible IRL for weeks after that session. And then he says the whole thing at the end, he's like, that was my favorite session. And
What was he shit talking?
well, not shit talk. He was just like talking about how much he hated this particular
Oh,
session.
right. Okay. As a
And
player, I mean, as a
as a
character.
player,
Pardon me, as a character.
yeah.
Got it.
And another I've experienced as a player recently was this, like very recently, like 2 weeks ago, we were on a train, the same train by the way, and this fucking lady shows up and she starts like attacking one of our players, and we go to like defend him, and she just takes his eyes out,
Amazing.
and she kept
Love it.
calling him by the name of a god over and over. And then I look over and I'm like, stop this, because I start recognizing this woman from visions I've been seeing.
Not gonna lie, I'm gonna steal that. Put that in my game.
Do it. And I started like going like, who are you? Stop, because I wasn't attacking her yet, because I'm like, why am I like, why have I been seeing her already, right? And she looks at me, she's like, oh, it's fine, you don't have anything to worry about, brother. And I'm like, I have a sister, you're not my sister. And it turns out she's also related to that pact thing I have, and that's why she's calling me brother. And I'm just like, what's happening? And
Yo,
I go
maybe
like,
your GM is false hiding you.
it's not a false idea. I checked. But
That is
if
hilarious.
it is, that's amazing as well. But then I'm like, yeah, please don't hurt him, don't kill him. She's like, oh, I didn't know he was important to you, I'm so sorry. And then she leaves.
Amazing.
And I'm just sitting there like, what? And a god basically died. Like a part of him was a god or some shit, and a god basically died. And this woman who just showed up and one shot a god's apostle or whatever was calling me brother, and I'm just sitting there confused.
Yeah, you gotta make adventure hugs personal like that, man. I love that. I
Oh, yeah.
love when GMs do that.
Yeah, dude. That was
Because
another very like
I honestly,
emotional
like,
one.
it would have
Yeah.
been pretty intense if some woman showed up, called this player a god, and pulled out his, like, that would have been intense enough. But to like
And then
tie
this
it to
happens.
you and then tie it to like
Yeah.
your backstory, like making it personal is so key, man.
And the
I love
crazy thing
that.
is, we were all given docs about the world for like basic lore we would know. And her name was technically in that document as a very old hero. And I'm like, wait, how is she still alive? What? And I'm even more confused.
That's awesome.
Oh, and one last one I would touch up on, like, just because it was very different from both of these. These were like two instances of DMs fucking with their players. And this third one was memorable because it was just heavy. And it was basically, one of my players was the champion of a Raven Queen. And he was given an opportunity to, like, so he was a noble, and we learned that his home was in danger of a siege, and he was trying to get everyone there. And he died on the way through a nat 1, and he got a deal basically that he can come back, he can become exactly who he's meant to be. But
that's very Maximum. I love it.
But he will expend his life force doing so.
Amazing.
He said yes. The man shows up, roided out, all his numbers are nearly maxed. He is broken. I love giving them like demigod level weapons and shit, Like he was a paladin rogue who had a glaive that can crit
That's amazing. I
with
love
sneak
doing
attack
that too. I'm
interview.
like, yeah, hell yes, you can have a
Yeah,
vorpal axe. Like, let's see if you can take a
yeah.
dragon down with it.
Crits to triple damage. He does like an extra like 8d10 or something to like undead. It was nuts. And he shows up, and first thing, his dad hates him. Like it's a character arc
Holy.
that has been persisting. Like he's not welcome at home, basically. But he was there to help. And while all of this is happening, at some point his dad gets like attacked by an assassination attempt, gets blinded and weakened. So he can't take part in the siege now. So it's up to him to defend. And they're undermanned. They're like, it's the Helm's Deep thing with them manning like the peasants and all with weapons. It's that dire of a situation. His other character, who has now become an NPC, showed up as a noble as well with his family, but they betrayed them and everything starts going wrong. And the inside of the walls, the army start like breaking open the doors and everything starts going horribly wrong. They're divided everywhere. And this is a huge battle because this is the fortress defending half the continent. Like this is the entryway to the half of the continent. And he gets down to the final area. This is the first character he ever made who he was playing here. This was like the first character he ever made along with what I helped him make. And he gets down there and he fights one of the other players' first characters who had turned evil, is now a monster. They fight, they end that fight with him dying, but saving his entire hometown. So everyone shows up and starts saying their very heartfelt goodbyes. Me with my NPCs also, I got choked up because like this guy's been with us for 4 years of playing. And then finally his body is like taken up the stairs and his dad sees it, and I had to role play his father who finally saw his son. He has been like putting aside, dying in front of him or like dead in front of him. And I had to like I didn't even have to role play at that point. I was already choked up and teared up. And it was just heavy shit, like me role playing this noble father who lost his son, and he's just going like, I should have been there more, I should have helped you more, I'm so sorry. And like he's just apologizing profusely and crying, while at the same time he feels helpless that him being this powerful man, he still couldn't help in this siege and his kid died because of it. And
that's fucked up, man.
Yeah, like just role playing that has stuck with me since.
Holy shit, dude, that's intense. That's crazy.
Like, oh my god, I had to take a minute after that.
No
like
shit,
just
no shit. You
Huh.
yeah, I'm sure everybody needed like. I need to just breathe
I had
for
to
a
go
second. I
through the
need to
trauma of 6
separate
different
myself from this
characters.
story for like a moment.
Like 6 different NPCs went through his loss. I had to roleplay all of them at once, and I just
Holy
lost
shit.
it. Like, just
That's crazy.
Oof. But yeah,
That's wild though.
amazing.
Like that's awesome, man. Like that sounds
I
like
loved it,
really
but also just like,
memorable.
oh my god, yeah.
Yeah. But that does segue
Yeah.
into my next question, which
Yeah.
I wanted to understand, like, and I think we got part of your answer in what you just said, but like, what helps you as a player be kind of obsessed with the game and think about it outside the table between sessions?
Firstly, I'm already doing that 24/7. Like literally, but beyond that, for me, it's just like when I'm in the session, especially as a player, I get like completely into it. Like I'm just like the person there. And because of that, I also end up getting hit by the fields quite a lot. Like whatever they are, they could be annoyance for as minor as they may be. But when the session is done, then I'm just like, but I want to do more, because you always have that thought. And you want to see where your story goes. You want to know how your character's reactions would affect whatever he just did. And you'll just spend the whole week thinking about it. Like outside the game, I'm just sitting there, like either as a DM or a player, I'm just like writing more like, what else can I do? How else can I interact with stuff? Or sometimes just fiddling around with mechanics and being like, oh, this could be a cool combination, stuff like that. Doing some note keeping and trying to connect dots every now and then if the campaign is dense enough. That's always fun.
Nice. Is there anything you would like your future GMs to know?
Hit me with the trauma. It's fun, firstly. And secondly, just don't be afraid to take a story dark if it is naturally going there. Because a lot of times people are like, oh, I have thought about this specific genre of my story, and this is where I'll keep it, which is fine. But a lot of times through natural events that have been narrated through or have happened through due to player action, a lot of times they can take a turn, not just darker, like they can just take a turn to different genre or like go somewhere else. And if you're in like a campaign and not a one shot or something, then definitely be open to letting the wave ride, because a lot of times resisting that wave breaks narrative in a lot of ways, and then it feels like you're in this
100%.
thematic cage, and then you're like,
Yeah.
because I have to keep that in mind, because even with my dark campaigns, a lot of times they do like very dumb, whimsical shit. Like it happens, and if you don't go along with it, then it's like, oh no, everyone peak frame right now, we're being serious, and like that's not fun for anyone.
No, because I mean, fundamentally, you're like a group of adults hanging out having fun.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
wherever it's going, just be open to riding the wave if it's going up or down, wherever it's going.
Yeah.
It's okay to
Yeah.
let things get heavy once in a while.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that I think is a wonderful point for us to wrap this up. So that's where I will end today. But thank you so much
Alright.
for being here. Tanay.
I
Like,
was
this
more
is
than
so
happy to
great.
be here.
This
This
is
was
so much
amazing.
fun. This is a lot of fun.
Same. Like I think this was great. I love geeking out with other people.
I
like,
know we do. We do. Telling you, man, vanity project. Start your own YouTube channel, and then you could just like hang out with people and talk about games. It's really great. It's
yes.
dope.
The
I'm
plans are
telling
being
you,
made.
it's that this is my plan. Like whatever.
Just like, yeah, guys. Can we
games.
hang out? No, oh, it's for my
Yeah,
YouTube
no.
channel.
It's,
Oh, okay,
it's
cool.
like really official, like super professional and official.
Oh, then I'll be there, of course. Totally wasn't
Amazing.
already gonna be there.
Amazing.
Like I
This
need
is
an
great.
excuse to talk about D&D.
No kidding, right? Amazing. Okay, well, thank you very much for being
Yeah.
here, and thank you anyone who's watching.
Thank you for
and
having me.
This is great. Come back in a couple of weeks where we will have another endlessly fascinating player. But until then, thanks everyone. Bye.